Welcome to Underreported News. Global humanitarian crisis getting minimal coverage. The world's worst crises you have never heard about. The most underreported humanitarian disasters. While headlines focus on politics, culture wars, and elections, millions of people are caught in humanitarian disasters and receive almost no media attention, from the Central African Republic to Zambia and Honduras. These crises affect entire nations, yet barely trend on major news feeds. In this deep dive, we explore why these emergencies are underreported, who's affected, and how the media prioritizes shape what the world sees. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on X, YouTube, and Rumble. Story breakdown, line, introduction, the stories that you don't see. We just did that. Organizations like CARE publish annual reports on the world's most underreported crises. These aren't small issues, they're large-scale emergencies affecting millions of people. They consistently fail to dominate headlines, and fail to capture sustained media attention. Why? Because news coverage is driven by geopolitical interests, audience familiarity, advertiser markets, political relevance to Western audiences, and narrative simplicity. Many humanitarian disasters fail all five. Section 1. Central African Republic, a country trapped in permanent emergency. For over a decade, the Central African Republic has been trapped in cycles of armed conflicts between militias, rebel groups, and fragile government forces. Over 25% of the population is displaced. Widespread food insecurity, attacks on villages, aid routes, and civilians. Entire regions inaccessible to journalists. This is not a new crisis, that's part of the problem. When a crisis becomes chronic, it stops being news. Just like Ukraine is starting to be less and less news and more just an everyday occurrence. Media tends to cover sudden wars, sudden disasters, and sudden change. CAR's tragedy is slow, grinding, and persistent, making it invisible to the news cycle. Section 2. Zambia, the drought you didn't hear about. Zambia is facing one of the worst droughts in decades due to El Nino, I don't know what it is, patterns, and climate shifts. Crops failing across farming regions, rivers drying up, fruit prices skyrocketing, rural populations walking miles for water. This is a climate story, this is a hunger story, this is an economic collapse story, but it doesn't fit the dramatic visuals of floods, hurricanes, or wildfires. Drought is slow, quiet, invisible, so it gets ignored. Section 3. Honduras, violence, poverty, and migration. Honduras struggles with gang control of neighborhoods, extortion economies, youth recruited into crime, and families fleeing northward. You may hear about migrations at borders, but you rarely hear anything about why people are leaving. The root crisis inside Honduras is rarely covered in depth because it's complex, ongoing, and tied to decades of instability. Section 4. Why these stories are underreported. These crises share traits. The trait why media avoids it, long term, not sudden, not breaking news, geographically distant, low audience familiarity, politically complex, hard to simplify, no Western troops involved, less geopolitical interest, hard to access, few journalists on the ground. This creates a feedback loop. No coverage is no awareness, is no audience demand, is no coverage. And then you keep going and going and going. Section 5. The human cost. Millions affected means children out of school, malnutrition, disease outbreak, generational poverty, migration waves, exploited by armed groups. These are not side stories, they're global stability stories that go unseen. Section 6. How NGOs become the only witness. Groups like CARE, Doctors Without Borders, and local aid groups often become the primary reporters of these crises. Because mainstream media isn't present, the reports are rich with data, but rarely picked up by major outlets. Section 7. Media incentives versus human importance. News is a business. Editors must choose stories that drive clicks, retain views, retain relevance to core audiences. A drought in Zambia competes with election drama, celebrity scandal, and domestic politics. It loses every single time. Section 8. Why you should care. These underreported crises drive migration patterns, destabilize regions, create long global economic strain, influence future conflicts. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear, it makes them worse. Conclusion. The Blindspot effect. The world's worst humanitarian disasters often are the ones that you've never heard about. Not because they're small, but because they are chronic, distant, complex, and inconvenient to the news cycle. That is what makes them underreported, and that's why they matter. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on YouTube, and Rumble. Do you want to hear more of these news stories? Don't forget to post in the comments for in-depth analysis. Just let me know and I'll get to it as fast as I can. That's it for today.